Good morning. All right, I'm going to try to make a faster video than what I had before for the iHub orientation. And again, the idea here is that we're going over the basic rules for working in the iHub in the morning, which are a little different than working in the iHub during your class periods or even after school programs. So let me see how fast I can cover this, and I should be able to get even more information across than the previous video in less time. Let's see how this works. All right, so first of all, I think at this point you may be aware that the iHub is available to you in the mornings, specifically from 7:40 a.m. until 8 a.m. At 8:05 you have to be in your classrooms, otherwise your teachers will be upset and probably keep you from coming to visit me in the mornings. Now here's the trouble. We have a lot of kids in a lot of grade levels that are interested in coming into the iHub, so we need to make it possible for all grade levels to definitely make it in. So here's what we've come up with. And I'll show you my page really quickly here. You can see that on, if I can read this backward, Mondays specifically assigned to 1st through 6th, on Tuesdays 5th, Wednesdays are 2nd graders, Thursdays are 3rd graders, and finally Fridays are 4th graders. Now, with that said, that does not mean that if you are in a different grade level from the assigned grade level for that day, you can't come in. Here's how we're doing it. Mrs. Myra, when you come into school in the mornings, she will have a clipboard that you can sign up on and put your name on it if it is not your assigned day. That way, if the assigned class, so let's say Tuesday is 5th grade, so let's say it's a Tuesday, 5th graders will come into the iHub, but the iHub's not full. I will then walk around, I'll go to Miss Myra, I'll pick up her clipboard and look at who else is signed up. And then I will try to bring in as many people as possible. We definitely don't want to keep people out. We also, though, want to give as much attention as possible to the assigned grade. So at 7:40, I will start looking for kids that do not belong to the assigned grade, and I will invite you in as much as possible. Now, when you do come into the iHub, the first thing you need to do is you actually need to sign in. To do that, I'll have my computer available, and this is our sign-in sheet. And you'll simply find your name over here on the left. You'll notice green means you're okay. And then you just put an X mark next to your name and hit enter. Don't forget to hit the enter button, otherwise it won't enter your X. So for example, these are in alphabetical order, if I were a dare, I'll put an X right there, I'll hit enter, and then you just step away from the machine and let someone else come in and sign in. Now, you might wonder how these names got here in the first place and why they're green. When you complete this video, I'll ask you a number of questions. If you can answer those questions correctly, I'll give you a little badge and I will add your name to this sheet. Now, if you lose the badge, not a huge deal. Really, the badge is just for you, but your name on this sheet is important. That means I know you've actually taken this orientation. All right, so let's go on to other matters, which are, for example, when the door is closed, in other words, when the iHub has as many students as we can handle for that morning, I'll shut the door and I'll put on the door this clipboard, iHub full. And that just basically means, unfortunately, we cannot take any more people. If you don't see this sign, on the other hand, you can always come in and ask me if there is still space. But again, I'll use Myra's clipboard to tell me whether or not I can take more people. But when you see this clipboard, I'm not going to lock the door, but basically this means please do not come inside. We already have as many as we can handle for that day. Now that will probably, besides being absolutely full, there's one other reason I would close the door, and that is if it is after 7:50, we will not take more students. And the reason is because basically you'd only have 10 more minutes to work in the space, which doesn't give you a lot of time to pull stuff out, build something, and still put the materials away. All right, now let's talk about what materials, well, sorry, before I start with materials, let's start by talking about what you need to do when you start a project. The very first thing you need to do is you need to give me a piece of paper with a drawing for what your idea is. Now, the reason I request that is because it allows me to look at your project and say, hey, these are some materials you might want to consider for this, or maybe there's an easier way to do it than you're thinking. It also, that piece of paper needs to have your name on it because it will help us organize your project in our cabinet. So let me show you something. Here's our cabinet in the iHub, this gray cabinet in the corner. And these are where the student projects are going. So let's take a look at a student project here. One that was just given to me this morning. Unfortunately, the student did do a drawing. They're going to build a marble run. The problem is they did not give me a name. So if I have to move this project and I don't know who it belongs to, that makes it harder for me. On the other hand, right below this is a car project that Lincoln was working on, and so Lincoln has his name and a drawing of what he's planning on designing. So that would work for my requirements. And as you can see, student projects are being stored in this cabinet. Now sometimes we run out of space, as you can tell here. So if you haven't worked on your project for a month or so, it's possible that that project will be placed in another location. So if you don't see your project, ask me, and then that way we can see whether or not maybe I had to move it to some other location. Now let's take a look at what materials are available to you. Let me back up here. All right, in front of the cabinet, you'll see two cubbies. Now, these cubbies have the words materials and tools openly available, which means within reason, you can use any materials in these two spaces, and you don't have to ask me for them. But again, that is within reason, which means don't grab 500 popsicle sticks, because you aren't going to have enough time to build with 500 popsicle sticks, and that means you're going to have to put them all away. And secondly, maybe there's something easier you can do instead of building with 500 popsicle sticks at a time. Now let me show you also really fast what is in each of these sections. You can think of these sections like your basic tool selections. So for example, your hot glue guns as well as your glue sticks would be over here. And then there would be hammers, for example, and pliers down here as well. Now, be careful with these kinds of tools. The hammers can definitely damage the tables, and the pliers can definitely pinch you. You might want to use those gloves in case you're using hot glue. And then we have things like aluminum foil and saran wrap. And then there's other useful tools over here, items over here as well, like the fuzzy sticks, or the bottle caps come in really useful for wheels and pulleys, or straws, all kinds of excellent structural materials, which gets us into popsicle sticks of a variety of types. And another really important thing you want to know about are the Ziploc bags, in case you're working on a project and you're trying to hold all your parts together. Next, on the other side, so this was the cubby over here. On the other side, this is like your stationery. So you're going to find your pencils over here. You'd have your paper. And if you need to set your hot glue guns down, scrap paper, for example, is over here as well. Or goose paper, usually. And then colored paper. And so you'll have paper clips and clamps and things like that. Tape is over here as well. And paint at the bottom. Be careful with the paint. Just make sure you put it on top of a piece of paper towel whenever you're painting. And string, always useful, over here as well. And of course, Scotch tape is right on top. And we do have materials to work with, which can be really handy for bags or any other projects. Now again, those are really easily available materials you're welcome to use. There are smaller materials that are on top of these cubbies. These I would like you to ask me about. In general, you are welcome to look at them, but please ask me about them before you use them, which would include screws and nuts and things like that. Now, that brings us to materials that are not necessarily openly available as far as you can't just grab them, but you are welcome to look at all of these materials. You're allowed to look inside of these drawers and see what's in them. However, on these two cubbies, you cannot use these materials unless you have my permission. You can look at them, you just can't use them without my permission. They'd include rubber band or balloons, springs, duct tape, stickers, there's PVC pipe, tees and connectors, and foam balls, and markers. Now here's something that throws people sometimes. These are Sharpie markers. Now the reason I have the Sharpie markers over here is because they will stain you or the cabinets or the furniture really badly if you're not paying attention. So I only want you to use Sharpies if you're working on plastic. But you are welcome to use the regular non-staining markers over here anytime you want, because those work terrifically on paper or cardboard or anything that isn't plastic or foam. Now, then there's lots of electronics over here, motors and LEDs. So this kind of stuff is definitely available to you. You can look at it, but just don't use it without my permission. Rubber bands. And now the reason this stuff's over here is because either it's expensive, or it's fragile, or it's dangerous, or it's distracting. Now, talking about danger, let's talk about some safety items. These shears, very, very good to use with popsicle sticks. However, never put them on a table with wires, for example. There have been a number of instances where kids have accidentally cut through wires. So you could take these out and say, take them over to the sink over there, and you can work right next to the sink. That is fine with me. Again, just ask me if you want to use them. Which brings us to the issue of safety goggles. Safety goggles are right here on the pegboard. Feel free to use them anytime you want. And they're up here. They should usually be over here on this table. And I also have an extra stash of safety goggles over here as well. Now, my requirements for safety goggles is, as you can read on the tables, you need to use them when you're working with shears. You need to use them when you're working at this table over here, any of these tools, because the drill press can throw things off. The scroll saw can also throw material into your eyes. And you are welcome to use the safety goggles anytime you want, as long as you feel like you need them. That's fine with me. Just try to remember when you're walking out of the room to take the safety goggles off and always put them back where you got them. There's one other area you might want to use safety goggles, and that is with the 3D pens, which again are over here, available by request. Just ask me and I'll say, hey, yeah, that's fine, use the 3D pens. And when using the 3D pens, by the way, boys and girls, please put the materials back where you got them. And if you're having questions and I have time, I'm very busy, you can ask other students next to you that are using them. Extra 3D pen plastic is right below, so you're welcome to use that as you're working with the pens. Other issue of safety. These tools at this table, you may not use them unless you have my express permission, because I either want to be right by your side or I want to know that you have plenty of experience using the tools. That's especially true for the drill press. These are relatively safe tools, but we want to make 100% sure that you're using the right tool with the right project. All right, so that generally covers safety, and I should say something about safety. Guys, basically, if you follow the rules that I'm laying down here, I will give you as much freedom as I can possibly manage. I want you guys to just have fun in here and build as much as you can, as fast as you can. But if I notice that you are doing things that are expressly against what I've just said, as far as safety or as far as putting materials away, I will not give you the leeway to build on your own. In other words, the more I can trust you, the more liberty and freedom I'm going to give you to build. The soldering iron, by the way, should have mentioned this as well. Very useful for electronics projects, but definitely something you want to wear safety goggles when using, and certainly need my permission to use at the same time. 3D printers are over here, so let's talk about projects and 3D printer projects. Whenever you build a project, I do want you to first, if you're done with it, when you're finished with it, please let me take a picture of it. That way we can show it off to other people, your classmates, and show them what you've been building. And we would also like you to present it. There is a display case right outside the iHub in the hallway. We'd like you to put it in there for 2 days. Now, we've never had a case where anyone has taken the projects of other students. Hopefully it will always stay that way. So I'm going to leave it unlocked. I'd love to leave it that way. That way you can come after 2 days, pick it up, take it home. That is absolutely fine with me. Just to let me know, so I'm keeping an eye that things aren't disappearing by accident. Just say, hey, Mr. Howard, can I take my project? And I'll say, definitely. Now, that is true for projects that are not 3D printed. Tricky part with 3D printed projects is, once the 3D printer's done with them, they look like finished products, right? You still need to leave them for 2 days so other kids can see them. And if it is a project that was created using a particular tool, you actually have to do something special to it. So let me explain that in 1 second. All right, so let's come over here to the 3D printers. There are 2 ways, basically, that we're using very frequently to 3D print items. Now, one of them is called Thingiverse. And let me go up here on the, okay, get you close to the screen. You can see that right up here towards the top it says Thingiverse. Now Thingiverse is just thingiverse.com. It is loaded with projects that you can easily download. So for example, we have Super Mario, and if I click on this, this is actually what you'd be printing. In fact, we have. One of the students printed this project just recently. Now you'll notice he's going to have to take off the support material for it. The other way to 3D print is to use Tinkercad. So Tinkercad is actually a CAD program, and here it is. The sign-in is just tinkercad.com, and the home screen looks like this. The sign-in is right up top there. You just click it, pops up a window. Now, it's a really easy sign-in. We have 20 accounts, so I'm going to type Hello Jello, and I'm going to say 5, for example. And the password for Hello Jello 5 is really easy. It's Hello Jello 5 again. And no caps, no spaces, and just Hello Jello 1 through 20, and it will pop up a home screen that looks like this. And to start, you simply say Create Legacy Design, and it will give you this blank worksheet, and you can drag on geometric items and then modify them and then print them. In fact, we had a student just a second ago print an egg. Here we go over here on the printer. And now when you print something using Tinkercad, you don't have to creatively modify it. But if you use Thingiverse, and here's an item right here that's been pulled off of Thingiverse, and it's printing over here. If you use Thingiverse to print an item, you do have to creatively modify it. Otherwise, you can't take it. So you could add lights, you could add a base. There's all kinds of things you can add to pre-printed items. As an example, we have a football field that was created for people printed off of Thingiverse. Now, when your items are printed, they'll be put over on the top of this cubby, so you can claim them and then modify them. Here we have, again, the Mario Brothers, so Luigi, I guess, who's going to later be mounted on other things. Here is a Thingiverse item, and again, because this is a Tinkercad item. Because it was printed on Tinkercad, this student can go ahead and take this after it's been on display for 2 days. Now, when you want an item printed, let me show you a very important sheet you have to fill out. It's right next to the computer over here. All you have to do is put your name, if you're using Tinkercad, what Tinkercad account you're using. In this case, it would be Hello Jello 5. Or if you're using Thingiverse, you need to tell me the file name that's downloaded from Thingiverse. Again, if you're using Thingiverse, you have to creatively modify it. So you need to explain what your creative modification is going to be over here. Do not forget to tell me the color, otherwise I don't know what color plastic to use for you. And if we have any problems, we'll put that over here in the download or print comments. Now, by the way, for knowing your options for plastic, they are right up here, these spools, the red, the green, the purple, the blue, the silver, gold, clear, peach, yellow. These are your main options. These ones up on the top are actually for the 3D pens, so do not pick from those colors. All right, that pretty much covers it. The only thing we have to talk about otherwise is the end of the morning, and that is at the very end of the morning, which again I said was 8 o'clock, I'm going to give you a 1-minute warning to clean up your spaces, or that you're about to clean up your spaces. I'll give you that warning at about 7:59. Then I'll say, all right, everyone's got to clean up, and you only have 2 minutes to do it. You need to put those materials back in the correct places. You cannot just throw them randomly around. If you do not clean up, or if you do not put those parts in the correct places, I will put your name in red on the sign-in sheet. So again, if you see your name in red on the sign-in sheet, I'll put a little comment next to it for why your name is in red. And in the future, the next time you come to the iHub, I will ask you to clean up earlier. And if again we have issues, then I may consider asking you to not come for one session, or we'll discuss what we can do to encourage you to get things put away and yourself to class on time, because we don't want you to get to class late, your teachers won't appreciate it. It won't help you later in the day. So the last thing I want your morning making to be is kind of a headache for the rest of the day. I really want you to come in here, build, just have fun creating, and to be able to use that extra time that you have at school in the morning to do something really fun. I hope this is helpful. Now, if you can answer a few questions, I will give you a badge. Have a good one!